Ryan here with LongRangeOnly.com, and in this video we are going to talk about the Maven RS.5 4-24 by 50. Now, Maven's fairly new, relatively new to the scope community. When they first got started, they were mainly marketing towards the, what I would say would be your normal hunter, with those lower powered scopes, the non-exposed turrets. But over the past couple years, they've kicked things up a little bit with the RS3, which we've done a review on, the RS5, which is this one right here, and then the RS4, which was actually introduced between the two scopes, which we will have a review on around the same time as we release this review. Now, with those three scopes I just mentioned, they've gone to the things that a long-range hunter or a long-range shooter is really after, and that's the exposed turrets and things like that. We're going to go ahead and walk through all the features of this. In the introduction, you saw the specs. If you would like to, go ahead and pause and take note of those. I'm not going to rehash all of them, but I will talk about a couple of them. At 25.5 ounces, this is a great weight for a lot of those lighter weight builds where we still want long range capabilities. So I really like that. It sits right in between some of the lighter scopes, like maybe the 3-18 V6, the March scopes, which are obviously more expensive, but it sits a little bit under the weight of like an NX8, which is one of my favorite scopes. But if you're shaving ounces, that might be a consideration for you. Okay, it's got a illuminated reticle, and it's got the dial over here with stops for turning it off in between each brightness setting. The brightness settings go up to 10, so they go from 1 to 10. Like I said, they've got stops in between, and for those that want the illuminated reticle, it's a nice feature. In my opinion, the dial with the stops in between is exactly how an illuminated reticle should be. Now on this Maven RS5, just the center dot is illuminated. I think that is really a good idea because it's all you really need, and it doesn't cause a lot of distracting brightness in the scope like some of the others. It's a pretty nice compact scope. It's not the most compact, but it's also not the biggest. I think it's really about the perfect size, unless you just have to have something more compact, which in this price range and in the the 24 power range, most of them are going to be pretty close to this size. One of the other things I really like, and it should suit a lot of people very well, is it's a 4-24, where most scopes in this 24 power are either going to be a 5-25 or even a 6-24. So that's really nice. It's going to let people go clear down to 4 if you're wanting to do some predator calling or something like that, but also stretch it out at 24 power and have plenty of zoom to get out there at long distance targets. It is a second focal plane scope. I do not believe they intend to make it in a first focal plane. I'm indifferent to first or second focal plane. I kind of lean towards first focal plane, but it would never be a decision-making factor for me picking a scope. As far as the reticle, I'll drop in a picture real quick right here while we talk about it. I kind of had mixed feelings about it at first. It's kind of growing on me. I don't know that I really understand the 5 MOA down and the 10 MOA down, and I think it's got a 15 MOA down. Like I said, you can stop and look at that reticle here. But the more I shoot it, the more I think I like it. It's very simple and clean. There's not a clutter in the scope reticle, and like I said, the more I use it, the more I like it. The only thing I ever really use is holding off for wind. I'm never going to hold up and down. I will always dial, especially with a scope that's got really nice turrets and intended to dial. So I do really like the reticle. I do think my favorite part of it is the center floating dot. It's very small, so if you're doing some precision target shooting or load development, it's very nice. A lot of the reticles are just too fat there to get too precise. I mean, they don't ruin it for you. It's not a deal breaker, but it's not ideal, and this one is very, very nice. Yet when you get out long range on targets like deer or whatever, you can still see the dot, and the reticle draws your eye right into that center, so it works out perfectly. It does have a capped windage turret, which I think that I have come to prefer. I don't usually dial for wind in fast situations, or situations where I got an animal that's not wanting to hold still. I get the range, I dial the elevation, and I'll typically hold off for the wind. Now, if I do have a lot of time to get set up for a proper setup, I will go ahead and take this off and I'll dial it. Now, under that cap is a turret that is just like it would be if it were an exposed turret. So they didn't skimp there or leave us hanging with a substandard windage turret just because it's capped. It does have markings on it in 1 minute increments going left and right, and like I said, the clicks are just like you would expect from anything on the elevation turret, so that's a real nice feature. And this, as far as the usage here, is a toolless reset to the 0. So you just spin this little cap off, and then the turret actually comes off. You put it on the new setting, put it back, and then spin the cap on, which is awesome. I can't stand trying to find different Allen wrenches or torque wrenches. No one can use the same thing. Even some of the different toolkits I have for gunsmithing toolkits don't have all of the wrenches. It usually is a deal where I just need to keep a collection of them depending on what scope I have with me. As far as the elevation turret, it's the same deal. To reset the 0 on the turret, you just spin this cap off and then put it where you want it, and then spin the cap back on. Now underneath there is what I would consider to be the standard 0 stop today. They're really good, they're nice and solid. It comes to a real solid stop. There's going to be no confusion about where your 0 is. And then to reset that, you just get your scope actually zeroed, take this turret off, then take some screws loose on the 0 stop, turn it clockwise until it stops, and then tighten it back down. The turrets are very nice, they're audible, they're very tactile. Honestly, one of the best turrets that I have shot on any rifle, period. They are up there with the best of them. It is 20 minutes per revolution, which is a good number. Again, 20 is kind of the standard, I would say, for me, probably the bottom end. 25 and 30 are great. You're probably not going to use it a lot, and with the 0 stop, it's not really that important, because even if you go up past 1 full rev and then you make your shot, just dial it back to 0 and you won't lose your spot. The issue with the turrets that have more dial per more elevation travel per rotation is they start to get a little more mushy. So it's a nice trade-off, and I think it's a great turret, like I said. As far as the Parallax, it's a side adjust Parallax. They are labeled. I couldn't care less. I don't pay any attention to whether or not those numbers are right, because when you set the diopter for your eyeball, chances are it won't line up. They can't possibly make that the same for everybody, and it's not something I would get hung up with. As far as adjusting to parallax free, I always get my head into the scope, get settled on the target, and then make my parallax adjustments, and it does fine. As far as repeatability, I've shot this probably upwards of 1,000 rounds now. The tracking has been spot on. We've done tracking tests on it. It always returns to 0. It's been flawless in that aspect, and I would not hesitate to use this scope on any of my rifles. The glass quality is not something that I rank as high importance, just because the other features as far as the tracking and the return to zero and the turrets, they're far more important to me. But this glass is going to be on par with Zeiss V4. It's not as good as the NX8. Right now, the scopes that I've compared it to, I would say those are going to be the closest comparison. It's, like I said, right in line with the Zeiss V4 as far as color fidelity, clarity. I don't see any chromatic aberration in it looking at the target, looking at the optics chart. Like I said, I don't place it at very high importance, but it's going to do everything you need. It's really pretty good glass for the price. Now, talking about all those features, let's go ahead and talk about that. At $1,400, I personally think that it is a little bit better than the Zeiss V4. The Zeiss V4 is a great scope, and it is our favorite scope at the $1,200 and under price range, but I think that I would stretch the budget another couple $100 and pick up this RS5. I actually think the RS5, it kind of sits in no man's land as far as price, probably like in the Husqvarna Blue Diamond price range. I would take this scope over the Husqvarna. Now the NX8's a completely different price range, and I do think that it is worth the extra money, but if you can't stretch the budget, this is an awesome scope, and I wouldn't hesitate to get it if you're in that $1,400 price range. One of the other things that is not very important to me, but a lot of people it could be very important to, Maven actually allows you to customize parts of the scope. So everything that you can see here that's in the grayish color, they've got a couple different color options, and I don't remember what they all are. I think orange, a green, a red, this gray. You can go with black. Just when you're ordering the scope, go ahead and hit the customization, and you can individually change it. So if you wanted 3 different colors on there, I believe that you can get all of those different colors on there. Again, not something that's important to me, but a lot of guys might appreciate that. So let's go ahead and walk through, summarize it, and wrap this review up. At $1,400, I do think that this is the best scope that you can buy in its price range. I actually like this scope a little bit better than the RS3, mainly due to the zero stop and the turrets. The Reticle is awesome. If you want a second focal plane scope, this is going to be a great scope and a great reticle for you. Illuminated reticle, it's just got the center dot, that's all you need. It's not going to blind you when you turn that on, and with the different power settings for that illuminated reticle, you should be able to get it dialed into whatever your needs are at the time of the day or the situation that you're in. The parallax adjust is very smooth, and it's not too hard, it's not too weak. It's got the capped windage turret with a very, very usable windage turret underneath of it. It's got the toolless zero set on the turrets. It's a 4 to 24, which is an awesome zoom range. I really do appreciate the fact that they went with a 4 to 24 instead of just a standard 6 to 24. It's got the diopter setting right here, and it's got glass that I think is in line with the price, and it will do everything that we need for long range hunting, even in low light conditions. So if you're looking for a scope for long range hunting or just any hunting in general, and you're in that $1,400 to $1,500 price range, you need to take a look at the Maven RS5. It will do everything that you need. I don't think that you should be wanting for more. We'll have a link in the description below to a thread on longrangeonly.com. You can head on over there and ask me any specific questions that I didn't get answered. I'll try to get those answered for you. Please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and turn on notifications so that you can be notified of future videos. We appreciate you taking the time to watch. Have a great day.